My name is Jane Freeman, and I'm one of the people behind the founding of the Historical Society here in Sun City. And actually, it came about 2 or 3 years before we were going to celebrate our 25th birthday. And a group were talking, and we thought, there's no place for any one person to go for information about Sun City. We aren't incorporated. We don't have a Chamber of Commerce. And we got to thinking, well, let's write a history for our 25th anniversary. And fools walk in where angels fear to tread, and having made the suggestion, you can imagine where it ended up. But I was fortunate in that Glenn Sandberg came along, and we kind of partnered together and began developing a lot of information, collecting information. We had a lot of people involved. A lot of the residents pitched in and did a lot of the research for us and some of the writing and tracking down information. And it took us about 2.5 years to write what we call Jubilee, the 25-year history of Sun City. And part of it, we collected a lot of information, old photographs people donated. We talked to some people and got the records. And we had 5,000 copies of the Jubilee printed, and we sold every one of them. Now we're collecting them and reselling them again as collector's items, and it was very popular. But I think one thing, the important thing, when we were able to get the first model home, we could headquarter all of the material and get it separated. We have a lot of graduate students coming in now studying Sun City and the aging population and how it came about, and people who are just interested in history and history. We also are completing, it sounds morbid, an obituary file, and it's amazing the number of people come in looking for families and records of that type of thing. We have all of the telephone directories, and that is unique in that it also lists the name of the person, where they're from, and their occupation, which I don't think you find in the usual telephone directories. But it's become a depository. And another interesting thing is even the Del Webb Corporation comes to us quite often looking for material that they haven't been able to locate. So I think it's something that we're preserving for history, and the older it gets, the more interesting it will become for the people. Mm-hmm. It was small. Everybody knew everybody, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of socialization. And of course, as it grew, that became a little further apart. But I still think we have a sense of camaraderie here in Sun City. We work together. If there is a social need or a medical need, we find it, and we see that it's offered. And I think Sun City now is very fortunate in that we have phenomenal medical facilities. And I think that contributes also to our well-being and our long life. I think it was primarily to get out of the snow and the cold in the east, and my husband was interested in golf and the year-round weather. Mm-hmm.
In 1960 and 70, did you have other options for this type of housing, or was it only Del Webb and Sun City?
Well, we looked in Florida, we looked in Colorado and other places, but this just appealed to us.
Why, and under what factors?
The weather, primarily. That was our primary reason for coming here. And the people we had met were friendly. And I think at that time, everybody was moving in all at the same time, pretty much so. And now people are settled, and newcomers coming in are coming into an established community. And sometimes that makes it a little more difficult to get integrated into the community. Well, the clubs and the organizations, but I think one of the strong points was the volunteering on the part of the residents. In fact, we're known as a city of volunteers. And people aren't volunteering like they used to, but we still get volunteers. We find if you ask them, they're willing to help, rather than offering, I want to volunteer, where can I go? But you can find people, and it's continuing. And I think that makes for a community, and as people have said, if you keep busy, that's the long life. Out here, 50th wedding anniversary is nothing. This is commonplace out here. But we get 60. I know a couple is getting ready to celebrate their 74th wedding anniversary. So longevity is really a lifestyle out here. And they're active. Where I'm living, there's a gentleman, 98 years old. He plays golf 3 days a week. He doesn't play 18 holes, but he's still playing golf. I think to preserve and for history. So it will be available. And I say it's going to be more important in generations to come than it is right now. Right now, we're living it. But also, at the same time, if we don't collect it now, we won't have it for future use. And I think this is our main mission, is collecting, sorting, cataloging, and making it available, and working with people who come in and want to use it. And it was the best decision I ever made when we moved here. Because it opened up a whole new lifestyle. My husband and I had been working. The children were grown and out of college, but we came out and we had a second life, really. It was a second lifestyle, a new way of living, an enjoyable way of living. If we didn't want to do it, we didn't do it. If we wanted to do it, we did it. And yet we were interested in the fellow man and our neighbors and their welfare. It opened up a whole new outlook. I think that the main interest is what made it click. Because every sociologist in the country when it started said it'll never work. But what made it click? And I think it was the homogeneity of the people, their interests. And when people came in 60, these were people who were coming out. They didn't have retirement funds then. They didn't have pension funds. And some of the people were living on Social Security. And in fact, some of our people right now to this day are living in Social Security. About 10% of our residents are living at or below the poverty level, in spite of the fact that Sun City is considered a wealthy community. So we have the other spectrum too. But I think there was a togetherness that you didn't find in the other communities. And I think that's what held it together.
What did having this?
Well, we do have rotating exhibits, but this year being our 40th anniversary, and this was really Phyllis Streets, who was the president of the Historical Society, her idea, and really 90% of it is her work, actually. And we did it in segments. We have the 1960s with pictures and some of the events that went on, the 1970s, the 80s, and the 90s, right up to the present time. So you can go through the house as we have the displays, and you can see the evolution and some of the changes from the very small, modest homes to our larger homes, and how as people moving in were more affluent, demanded more, and this is reflected in the recreation centers. It's reflected in the churches, the size of the churches. We have beautiful churches out here, and the sizes of the homes, and the prices changed. And you can see this evolution. Well, it had been a private residence for several years, and then I think 2 different families had lived in here, if I remember correctly, and it came on the market, and we had been looking for something. We were, in fact, another model home had come on the market further down, the 5th one, but was out of our price range. This came in, and it was available, and we were able to get some funding, some private contributions and grants came in, and we were able to buy it. We had to do a lot of work with it, but we have been able to manage it. And we still exist on contributions and gifts. So I think it's unique that we have the very first model home. It's very modest. It's getting much too small for our needs, but so far we're coping.